Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where we are currently having an issue where our five-way unconnected position for our five-way intersection appears to be incorrect or something. I'll show you what exactly I mean here. If we play this, as soon as it actually loads up, which takes, a good 10 to 15 seconds with the way we have it set up right now, we can offload some of this into other threads and optimize this later on, have it be almost instant. But for right now, this will be just fine. There we go. Skip that tutorial. In we go. And now let's find ourselves a five-way. Here's one. So as you can see, it should be connected here, but it's connected here instead. So ultimately, it's just a rotational issue. It's calculating everything else absolutely correctly. But for whatever reason, it is always returning this with the with the flat portion down, right? I think that's what's happening here. Flat portion down. I'm reasonably certain that that's what's going on here. I don't see any others so far. Yeah, here's one. Flat portion is down. Flat portion is down. Yeah, so, that definitely seems to be the problem. So the question is, why is it returning flat rotation down? Well, that's vector 3.0, so rot equals vector 3.0 here. So, what that tells me, it is outputting this. So there is one that's not actually in this. So let's just verify that. Yeah, there were 14 in that particular hex that it found. So it is finding an unconnected position. So unconnected position equals sub-subhex manager dot subhexes I dot neighbors j dot transform dot position. And that is, in fact, correct, and I keep saying this, but this just seems a smidge too loud, but there we go. Okay, so our position then equals subhex manager, or rather sub-subhex manager, dot subhexes I dot transform dot position. That's fine. And then if sub-subhex manager dot approximate contains connected neighbors... Wait, what? Oh, okay. This is the problem right here. We're checking to see if it doesn't contain it, and then we're only doing the rotation if it contains it, which we know it isn't containing it. So, yeah, let's go ahead and delete this. That is this close here. Like this, and then we can shift-tab this all in. Like that. I have no idea why that was there. That must have been a problem with the porting. And actually, we should probably be able to not have this debug.log. Those can be a bit slow if you're generating a lot of them at a time. And I don't really want to slow us down or clutter this console. I'm pretty sure that's going to fix this. Like I said, all I needed was a little bit of distance. I took a break, came back a couple days later, and here we are. I'm like 95% certain that's the problem. I mean, it has to be the problem. There's no way it's not the problem. Okay, let's go in here. Let's find ourselves a five-way intersection. Where are we? Come on. Oh, there's one here somewhere. There's always one here somewhere. So far there aren't any. But there's gotta be here somewhere. Up this direction, perhaps? Here's one, and it's correctly rotated. Excellent. Well, there's that bug fixed. Well, that was my plan for this episode. Now I've got another 15-20 minutes to fill. So, I'm going to go ahead and compulsively save this, and we need to decide what we need to do next, right? I mean, next, I think we're going to work more on purchasing the land, now that we have the ability to do that. So let's just go through the tutorial here. because that's step 1. I want to make sure the tutorial is functional, and as we come across things that we need to implement to make the tutorial functional, we will do that. So, welcome to your new logistics company. The first thing you should probably do is name your company. You can do this by typing in the box in the upper left-hand corner. After clicking Next, try this. Okay, so instead of default company name, this will, of course, be Atraitus Incorporated. There we go. Great job! You successfully named your company. You can change this at any time in the future if you so choose. The next decision to be made is where our first hub should be located. For now, this hub will consist entirely of one truck depot. I don't think that's accurate anymore. Use the toolbar on the bottom of the screen to place your first depot. First one is on me. Press Next to continue. Okay, there are some things in that are going to need to change. First thing that is going to need to change is we're not going to be using a truck depot. We're going to be using a postal office as our first structure. So let's go ahead and come into our prefabs here in the tutorial. And let's see, you successfully named your company. Oh, okay. This is just a duplicated one. So, the next decision to be made is where our first hub should be located. Once we've decided that, we should purchase the land. Press Next to continue. Okay, so we don't pause on Next. And then the next one, let's make sure that we have it in here for the tutorial script. We do not. So we're going to bump that up to 3 elements. Element 3. There we go. Okay, so for purchasing land, we're going to have this be purchasing land. So, for our land purchase, and I'm just going to change the sprite to like UI sprite for now. We can come back and modify those later on, have a few variants of like an advisor sprite. But for now, this will be fine. So, for purchasing land, the question is, how do we value land? But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and say, you should find a piece of land that borders water for your first hub if you want to do any overseas shipping. And then the question is, how do we get them to figure out how to buy land? Well, the answer to that is pretty simple, and that is something along the lines of and actually I can do this in a different paragraph. To purchase land, select the hex you want to be based in. I recommend an urban hex to start with. The population density makes more sense. Okay, I'm gonna just enlarge this a tiny amount so that we're not clipping off there. So, select the hex you want to be based in. I recommend an urban hex to start with. The population density makes more sense. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and pause that. And I'm going to say, after clicking Next, try clicking on an urban hex bordering water. Okay. There we go. So then we can press play. It's going to pause, but it doesn't know when to unpause quite yet. So the tutorial is going to go ahead and tell us how to purchase land, how to build our first depot, how to get all that started. Of course, we're going to have to implement quite a few things to make it fully work, but we're getting close, actually. So name our company. I'm just going to name it A for now. Purchasing land. You should find a piece of land that borders water for your first hub if you want to do any overseas shipping. To purchase land, select the hex you want to be based in. I recommend an urban hex to start with. The population density makes more sense. After clicking next, try clicking on an urban hex bordering water. And then, of course, we can do that and zoom here, but it doesn't actually do anything. So, let's go ahead and start working on our pause function here. So, I believe it was in advisor object right here. Okay. So, public void unpause on selecting world hex. There we go. If method equals null, we're going to mostly copy this. Do setup method equals unpause on selecting world hex. Should unpause equals false. And then we would add our listener here. We're not doing it via a listener, though. So method equals unpause on selecting world hex, should unpause equals false. So when we actually select our world hex, let's hop on in here and let's check what happens when we actually select it. So if input.getMouseButtonDown 0, we go ahead and set manager.selectedWorldHex to be this. When we deselect it, selected world hex equals null, and I believe by default it's null. Yes, that is correct. So, when we are doing our advisor script here, if awaiting delegate and method equals null, so what is our awaiting delegate? An advanced script, awaiting delegate, okay, yep. So if elements current index dot should unpause, awaiting delegate equals false, blah 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 blah. If awaiting delegate and method is not equal to null, and then if the method is equal to null, then we should call the method, right? So, else if awaiting delegate if awaiting delegate and method is not equal to null, then what do we do? Well, we should probably check to see if we should unpause. Hang on, this is exactly the same thing. What am I doing? Okay, we should check to see if we should unpause, and then we run all of this stuff if we should. However, we need to implement should unpause for this. So return should unpause, which will be false for right now. So should unpause equals false. And then when we do the delegate here, should unpause equals true. So we can do that for like UI elements and such that we want the player to click on, but for right now, we're not wanting to click on a UI element, we're wanting to select the world hex. So instead, we're going to need to do some sort of an update run here. So if elements current index dot should unpause, then we could run it here potentially. So if method equals null, we do our setup, else we call it again here. Maybe. No, because that would immediately remove the listener here. Unpause on selecting world hex. I mean, we could have something like a switch statement in the should unpause. Switch, and this would be method. Can we do a switch on that? Must be a bool, char, string, integral, enum, or corresponding nullable type. Nope. If method equals unpause on selecting world hex. Yeah. Okay. This doesn't currently know about the hex manager. So let's go ahead and do private hex manager, and we will put that in here. Hex manager equals game object dot find game object with tag. I'm assuming I have it tagged. Let's check that. I don't mean to open Google Chrome. Okay, let's check in here. Hex manager is untagged. Okay. We will do find game object of type then. Hex manager. There's only one hex manager, so that'll be fine. So if unpause on selecting world hex, then we can go ahead and check if hex manager dot selected world hex is not equal to no. And in fact, we can just do if dot selected world hex should unpause equals true. Okay. So that'll set up our unpause on selected world hex. And I actually kind of want to say method equals null here, and then down here, else method equals null when we recall unpause on selecting world hex. So that way it doesn't remember this one accidentally. Okay, so let's go ahead and duplicate this guy right here, 003. And this will be 004. And we will call this hex levels for right now. And this is going to pop up over the hexes, which is a bit awkward, but I'm going to go ahead and say, as you can see, the map has now zoomed in. Additional hexes are now viewable. There are 3 different hex levels in Operation Logistics. World hexes, which are the large hexes that you've already clicked on. Okay, this is kind of bothering me. There we go. World hexes, which are the large hexes that you... I don't want to do a dangling participle. The large hexes on which you've already clicked. There we go. Next up is the biome hexes, which you can see below this window, because it's going to be covering it in a really awkward fashion. And a third level, the building hexes. Select a biome hex to continue. And it pauses on next, but for right now, it's not going to do anything else, and we'll go ahead and add that to the tutorial script. So line 4 right here. There we go. Okay. So we're going to need to do a public void unpause on selecting biome hex. If method equals null, then we will go ahead and do setup. Method equals unpause on selecting biome hex. Should unpause equals false. And then else method equals null. Okay, and then we will implement our should unpause right here if, and then in fact I'm going to do an else if method equals unpause on selecting biome hex. If, okay, is that in the subhex manager? What happens when we select a biome hex? That's what we need to know. So let's go to our biome hex right here. When we select it, manager.selected subhex in the hex manager. That's actually super convenient. So we can basically do exactly the same thing as we did here. So if hex manager.selected subhex should unpause equals true. Okay, Fancy. Well, that was easy. Let's head into here and make sure that it deselects. It does indeed. Okay. So we should very easily at this point be able to just hook up that unpause. So it would be... Actually, this one was not set up either. So it should be on... what are we doing here? Right. Right, because it needs to be on itself. Okay, this one doesn't have a pause. This one does. It's then on itself, and then it's on advisor script element, and this is unpause on selecting world hex. I'm going to also add in here in urban, and then in parentheses, for right now, gray. It should be a little more obvious later on, but try clicking on an urban gray hex bordering water. Okay, and then this one needs to go here, advisor script element, unpause on selecting biome hex. So we select a biome hex to continue. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this again before we go ahead and run a test. So there we go. And this is going to be purchasing land again. Now that's purchasing land there. That's hex levels. I guess I'll call this surveying land. Yeah, that'll be fine. So surveying land, hex levels, purchasing land. And this is just going to be a placeholder for right now. It pauses on next, but we're going to remove the on begin pause for right now. And actually, it doesn't even need to pause on next. We'll come back to it. So I'm going to go ahead and, as soon as VLC goes away here, there we go, bring this up. No, go away, VLC. Bring this up to 5. And slot in that prefab. Okay. So we will go ahead and run the tutorial script here. At least as soon as it loads. Okay. So we should go ahead and name our company. There we go. We have named our company. You should find a piece of land that borders water for your first hub if you want to do any overseas shipping. To purchase land, select the hex you want to be based in. Ugh, dangling participle. I recommend an urban hex to start with. The population density makes more sense. After clicking next, try clicking on an urban, gray, hex bordering water. Null reference exception. Why did that null reference? At line 41. Hexmanager.selected world hex. What did I mess up here? Is it not assigning the hex manager? We can simplify this member access. Why can we do that? We're not a game object, we're a mono behavior. Why can we do that here but not here? It's a little odd. Well, let's hop over to world hex and see how we grabbed it here and do exactly the same thing. What did I call it here? Hex manager is manager. We're actually not grabbing it? Seems a little strange. Where do we assign this? I know we use manager. Go to implementation, right there. Public hex manager manager. We're not assigning it here? It's not in our start. Oh, the manager sets it for the world hex. That's what it is. Okay. In that case, we do need to figure out why exactly this isn't working. So we should find object of type. Yeah, unpause on selecting world hex is throwing this error, presumably because hex manager is null referenced. Presumably because this isn't working. Well, fine then. Game object dot find. Game object. We'll just do game object dot find, I guess. Hex manager dot get component hex manager. It's called the hex manager, right? Yes, indeed. Okay. We could tag it and do it that way. That might not be a bad idea, but let's just make sure this is working. Come on. You can do it. You'll be fine. There we go. Okay, we will name this A. Great job. Surveying land. No reference exceptioning. Immediately. So yeah, this is still no reference exceptioning. Hexmanager.selected world hex is not equal to null. Maybe that's causing the null reference exception? I have no idea. We'll try running that and see if that works. Come on. Finish your compiling. There you go. Okay. So let's see if this works. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I'm assuming this should work, though. Okay, default company name. There we go. Select a hex. No reference exceptions. Ugh. Why is this happening? It should be in the awake. Anyway, it is time for me to put a cut in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we are going to see if we can figure out why this particular line is null reference exceptioning. See you all then.